Beely?
Present.
Commissioner Sal?
Present.
Chairperson Arata?
Present.
Thank you.
I don't believe our mics are on. There you go.
Are they working? I think if you press the button, they should all turn on.
Give it a
There you go.
second. There, I guess.
What did you press? The button that says push.
Hold it.
You might have to hold it a second or two.
There you go.
Commissioner Anderson, would you lead in the salute to the flag, please?
And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
D, approve the order of agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the order of the agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Blue folder items, additional backup materials. Blue folder items are additional backup material to administrative reports and/or public comments received after the printing and distribution of the agenda packet for receive and file.
There are no blue folder items tonight.
Okay, moving to the consent calendar. Business items, except those formally noticed for public hearing or discussion, are assigned to the consent calendar. The commission members may request that any consent calendar items be removed, discussed, and acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar section below. Those items remaining on the consent calendar will be approved in one motion following oral communications. F1, approve affidavit of posting for the Public Works, Safety, and Sustainability Commission meeting. F2, approve the Public Works, Safety, and Sustainability Commission meeting minutes for the December 15th, 2025 special meeting. F3, receive and file status updates on projects discussed at the Public Works and Sustainability Commission. And F4, receive and file the monthly update to the city's strategic plan, 3-year priority areas and 10 months objectives adopted by the council on June 10th, 2025.
We need a motion to approve the consent calendar. I make that motion.
Okay. And second,
Second that motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, excluded consent.
Before we move on, if we want to take public comment on the consent calendar.
Sure. Do we have any public comment? Any e-comments?
There's no e-comments and there's no Zoom hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Excluded consent calendar items.
None tonight.
Public participation on non-agenda items.
I do have one card,
Okay.
and that's Jim Mueller.
Good evening, Commission. I'm Jim Mueller of District 5. At your December 15th meeting, I spoke about the need for traffic calming on Artesia Boulevard. That is necessary to encourage the residents to feel comfortable and thus be more present there on foot. If they were more comfortable and were there on foot, more commercial business would be done and therefore provide more sales tax revenue for the city, which is the mayor's goal. A consumer survey of residents who live in the neighborhood around Artesia Boulevard was done by Labasse Consultants as part of the ART project. The survey sought to find how residents felt about being on foot on Artesia Boulevard. Many noted that they would walk or bike more often if the corridor felt safer and more comfortable. They pointed to speeding traffic, a disturbing noise level from the traffic, narrow sidewalks that put them closer to the traffic, and limited crossings as major disincentives to be on foot on Artesia Boulevard. Overall, Artesia Boulevard is viewed more as a vehicle corridor than a pedestrian-friendly community street. They called for improvements that promote walkability and a sense of place. I suggest reducing the speed limit from 35 miles an hour to the same limit as the Riviera Village, a successful commercial corridor with a speed limit of 20 miles per hour. Make the boulevard a business zone as allowed by state law, with modifications that encourage slower speeds and prioritize pedestrians over vehicles. Install crosswalks in 2026 as called for in the ACAP. They're paid for by the ART grant. Install the other ACAP Artesia improvements, the bulb outs, and other pedestrian aids specified to provide pedestrian buffer zones and community space. Work with the Planning Commission to ensure new buildings or renovations use setbacks in a way that expands the pedestrian space. Begin this calming effort now before the new farmers market starts up. The city has delayed these actions long enough. If they want more business on Artesia, they need to make it so more people want to go there, plain and simple. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Continuing items continued from previous agendas.
And none.
J, items for discussion prior to action.
Good evening, Commissioners. Andy Winge, Public Works Director. I have with me tonight Andrea DeLapp, who manages our solid waste program in the city. As you may have heard, the City Council has elected to pursue a second amendment with our waste hauler contract, Athens Services. So we wanted to give you a little bit of an update tonight on what all the city does, what's kind of behind our solid waste contract and the requirements that the city is obliged to fulfill in that regard. And then we'll take questions from anybody. But this is mostly a receive and file item for your information tonight. But we're happy to try and answer questions and clarify anything regarding the contract and the services that we provide. Andrea.
Thank you very much, Andy. So as Andy said, tonight I plan to give you an overview of the city's solid waste services, understanding sort of the holistic approach that we have here in the city of Redondo Beach to waste management, our trash, our recycling. Some of you may have heard about our organics. Hopefully you have. It's a long and complex topic, as Director Winge has found out in his years serving as Public Works Director. So I'm going to sort of focus narrowly on our program, the programs that we run in the city, some of the highlights, talk a little bit, as Andy said, about that second amendment. But then at the end, if there's anything that we haven't covered that's of interest, just we'll have questions at the end. All right. So as hopefully you all know, Redondo Beach collects 3 streams of trash in our city: trash, recycling, and organics. We serve a variety of different classifications. So most people are familiar with that residential, that single family home, and you'll have at your home and put out in front of your house those 3 carts: that green bin for your organic waste, that blue bin for recycling, and then the gray bin for all the trash that's left over after you've sorted everything. Commercial and multifamily were a little bit different in some parts of in Redondo. There was what is called a mixed waste processing program, and in that program, the blue and the black bin are combined, and so and the hauler then sorts that on the back end. That's one of the changes that we're going to see as part of our second amendment. But for right now, that is an option that's available to our multifamily and commercial residents and businesses. So why is Director Winge sitting up here before you tonight talking about trash? The City Council, through our municipal code, has determined that it is in the public interest for the city to provide solid waste handling services. And the way our city determines that we will do that is that for the vast majority of our residents and our businesses, we have an exclusive franchise hauler agreement with Athens Services. You may know in some of our neighboring cities that that's not always the case. For example, in Torrance, they have their own solid waste hauling in the city of Torrance itself for their residents, and then for their commercial accounts, it's an open market. So I believe you have to have a business license, but you can choose then from a multitude of people. The City Council have determined that the exclusive franchise hauler agreement is in the best interests of the city and the community of Redondo Beach, and that is how we proceed. And then the municipal code also states that solid waste services are supervised by the Director of Public Works, and that is why Director Wingy is here with us this evening. So as mentioned, the city has an exclusive franchise hauler agreement, and that agreement is with Athens Services. The city has been in partnership with Athens since 2011, and a First Amendment was signed in 2019, and we're currently in year 7 of 9 years of that extended contract. It is the city's largest service vendor contract. There are larger, CIP and other projects, but as a service vendor, this is the city's largest contract, and it touches nearly every resident and every business in the city. Everybody has trash. So, we looked earlier at those 3 streams that we're all familiar with on our trash pickup day, but there are some special waste programs that help keep our streets, our parks, just our public right-of-ways clear. And we're all hopefully doing a good job in our own home and putting those containers out, but there are other areas where we have trash buildup, whether it be recycling, organic, hazardous waste. So we have, working in partnership with Athens, we have other services that are provided other than that just weekly pickup from your curb. The bulky item pickup, which I know our residents love, 4 free items per week. You just call Athens Services and put it out. They'll let you know when to put that out. And that's, I'll show you some stats on that later, but that's a very popular program. We have our paper shred events for the secure document destruction. We have 4 of those, 3 to 4 of those a year. We publicize all of that on our redondo.org webpage. Household hazardous waste events, very important for our community. We want to make sure all of that waste is taken care of appropriately. It's taken to the right locations. We want to make sure it's not going into our storm drains or any or into our ocean, God forbid. So that's an event that we hold twice a year at our at the PAC, the Performing Arts Center. Also very well attended by the community. And then we also have community compost giveaways. We've talked a little bit about the organics, and we'll talk a little bit more about why we are mandated by the state to do some of these 3-stream collections. But one of the nice parts of this is sort of a 360. We're separating that waste, we're sending that organic material out, and then we're able to bring that back into the community for our free compost events. And I've seen it used in a number of our own city parks as well as the community garden and some of the school locations. Just a note though, those events only happen twice a year, so we get calls constantly at our Public Works office. What do I do if I have something I need to get rid of today, whether it's batteries or paint? The Hyperion Safe Center is open all year round. It's only open to residents at the weekend. Again, all the information about opening and hours and contact information is all on the redondo.org website, but that's free for residents to use, and it's a really good service. Just a few pictures of some of those events. We have up at the top there, one of our household hazardous waste events at the Performing Arts Center. That is one of our I like that photo. At the Wilderness Park, that's a pile of our compost, and then the compost bucket pickup. And I brought one along for anybody who doesn't have one. I have a free gift for anybody in the audience. So this is what we're asking residents to, separate inside their house, and I will leave that there in case anybody does not have one at home. But free to our residents, we've acquired them through a local assistance grant program from the state. So any of our residents who need one of these kitchen pails for their house, they can just reach out to us at Public Works, and we will have one there when they come collect it at our office. I mentioned one of the popular programs, the bulky item pickup. And that dovetails into illegal dumping as well, because if people don't have an easy, efficient method to dispose of those bulky items or hazardous materials for that matter, but they can end up on the street as illegal dumping. So these are some stats from 2025, from last calendar year. The number of bulky items Athens reported picking up there, over 11,000. There's a typo on that, I apologize. That should be the total is 14,488. I'll have to if I do the math in a moment, I'll know what the white goods was. So just so that everybody knows what they are, bulky items could be your sofa, could be a mattress, could be a table. Electronic waste is going to be maybe radio equipment, that sort of thing. White goods refers to sort of kitchen appliances, and that number was more around the just under 2,000 number. So my apologies for that typo. The total being that 14,488. So those were numbers reported to us by Athens that they picked up from our residents, multifamily units over the past calendar year. Then Athens works hand in hand with Public Works to make sure that the city is free of illegal dumping, and that the number of items that either Public Works crews or Athens went out. It was either reported to us through a Comcate, through a call to Public Works. This item is on the public right-of-way. This item is maybe blocking traffic. Please come remove. That was over 1,200 items in 2025. So one of the things that we're always dealing with in our office in Public Works is the changing state regulations and the requirements that we need to implement here in the city. It's the latest one of those being SB 1383. I don't know if that's a term that you've heard, but it really applies to the organics, that third stream of separation that we've been talking so much in the solid waste world about in the last 4 years. The largest component of that, as I said, was organics. For residents in some cities, it really didn't change their infrastructure configuration. If you already had that green bin for your yard waste, you were pretty much all ready to go. In a lot of cities or more heavily built up cities, maybe they didn't have that third bin for their yard waste. So across the state, there's been a real push to roll out that third bin to residential, commercial, multifamily. Redondo Beach has done an excellent job. It is mandatory. It is required, and it's required for residents and businesses, and then the city is required by the state to enforce this. We've been in what they like to call rollout or education mode for the last 2 years. They are now pressing upon us quite heavily that we're there now and we're in enforcement mode. So we're starting to see having to implement programs making sure that we have that mandatory participation. You may have heard about a program called lid flipping. We sometimes get calls, why is there somebody going to my cart and flipping it and looking in it? That could be a member of Athens Services conducting the required program to go out and make sure that our residents and our businesses are doing those 3 streams of separation in the way that we're required. If you don't, you might get a little note on there saying, hey, we noticed you weren't recycling, or we noticed maybe there was some food waste in your trash. Let us know what we can do to help. Let us know what education, what do you need? Do you need one of these kitchen pails? So that's the first interaction you'll have with an Athens service representative if they, after that lid flipping. Later on, as the program continues to evolve, the state will require that there could be fines or penalties as we move further on through it. It's definitely our goal as the City of Redondo Beach and Public Works, and indeed the state through CalRecycle, to make sure that we are educating and informing, and that's the way we want to proceed. That's sort of skipping down to that contamination monitoring bullet at the end there. I'll circle back up just to edible food recovery. This really isn't applicable to our residents or our multifamily units, but this is really targeted at some of our larger businesses. Some of the grocery stores, some of the very large restaurants in town. They are required as part of this SB 1383 state mandate to, where possible, take food that has not been sold, or that generally in our city it's groceries or vegetables, that sort of thing, that is still usable but maybe past its sell-by date for the store, and to partner with a nonprofit in the town to get that food out into the community. As an aside, the city is currently undergoing a compliance review for all of our programs, and I had the opportunity to go out with the CalRecycle, the state auditors, for want of a better word, and it was really great to see how our local grocery stores are participating in this program. Also went to the Salvation Army, where they're one of the recipients of the donated food, and saw how they're utilizing that food to give to those people who maybe are experiencing food insecurity. And so our businesses are doing great work in meeting the requirements, and we continue to work with. It's a challenge, and it's a lot, and there's paperwork, but we're here to work with them and to help them through those processes. I won't spend too much time on that, but it really is just how the state mandates impact all of our programs. It impacts how we're processing, how we're programming in the city, how we're doing our outreach. We really have to make sure we're meeting all of those requirements, as well as delivering excellent programs and delivering excellent customer service. We also need to make sure that we're meeting all of those requirements on a state level. So with all of those requirements and with other disruptions that we have in the city, or not in the city, pardon me, in the industry, we are going out. Athens Services approached us to begin conversations on a Second Amendment, and City Council has directed staff to proceed with those Second Amendment conversations. Some of those drivers, I don't know if any of you have heard of them. I would not have heard of the SURF before I began working in Public Works, but it was a waste-to-energy facility in Long Beach, and it closed recently. So it was part of our contractual requirement with Athens Services that they diverted waste away from the landfill to that waste-to-energy facility. It's closed. It's no longer an option. So we need to remove that language from the contract. There have been landfill closures and also increased landfill tip fees across locations across the state. So that's something that's had to be considered. And then we've spent some time this evening talking about those 3 streams that we need to comply with. So for all those reasons, as I said, there was a proposed Second Amendment from Athens Services, and City Council have now directed staff to move forward with those conversations with Athens Services. These are just some of the kind of the highlights, some of the key provisions that will be included in that Second Amendment, meeting those compliance requirements. Those 3 streams will involve a rate structure adjustment for multifamily and commercial units, a bundled service for commercial and multifamily, and then the contract extension. There is a proposed 8-year contract extension from time of signing, or sorry, 8 years extension on the current contract. Before I, if at the end, if anybody has any questions on any of these, we can get, I'm happy to take them, but I would say that there is no impact proposed for single-family residential rates and multifamily units less than 4. There's no impact at all. There's no change to your 3 carts that you have sitting outside your house. There's no change to the service delivery, and there's no change proposed to the rates. It's really more for those commercial and multifamily that can go in and pick and choose what their services are. Those people who, say, I want a 3-yard bin 2 times a week, or I want a 1-2-yard bin 4 times a week. Those are the customers whose rates are going to be adjusted, streamlined, and bundled to provide sort of a more efficient service moving forward. And I just wanted to, a few numbers here for us. One of the things that we are very proud of in the city of Redondo Beach is that we do have 100% coverage across the community. Other cities across the state are struggling with this, but we have been very, very successful in compliance. Our residents, our businesses have been very cooperative in their participation in our programs. There are some pain points. Multifamily units, it's very hard when there's not a one person who's responsible. That can be the area where those lid lifts look a little interesting when additional outreach is needed. When you've got 20, 30 people all putting waste into the one green bin, it's very hard to determine who put in that 2 bags of trash. So that's an issue that we're continuing to work on. Multifamily move-out days are interesting. I don't know if you just as driving through the city, you see it as it gets to the end of the month. You might see, on certain areas where you have those larger complexes, sometimes it looks like somebody just put their entire house out onto the street. In some cases, they have done that appropriately and they have called that in. In other cases, they have not, and they leave that for the city and Public Works in partnership with Athens to deal with. So something, and in that, we also try where possible to bring in our code enforcement partners in the police department if we see areas where there is repeated violations of our code. And resources, redondo.org. All of the information is on our Public Works website. Athens Services, I have, maybe at the end I can show you one. There's an Athens Services guide that I really like. Whenever I'm looking at something in my house, I'm like, where does this go? Athens does a great job on their website of, this goes in this bin, this goes in your trash, this goes in your recycling. So that's all available. And then finally, where to contact us. Athens, their hotline, you can call them for if you're a business or a multifamily, that's where you're calling them for all of those a la carte options that we talked about earlier. But also if you have a bulky item pickup request, you can do that either on the phone, you can do it online on their website. If you have a concern or a complaint and you need to speak to Public Works, you can the Access Redondo app and the online customer service request are the quickest way to get to us because there's so multiple eyes on those. But also RB Recycles at redondo.org. You can reach us there. And with that, I will pause for questions.
Great presentation. Can you just share some information about the lid flipping that you were talking about? Curious about that.
Yes. So in our city, in the city of Redondo, it happens in various ways. And so depending on what city you're in, it can vary. But in Redondo Beach, we are partnering with Athens Services. So primarily, it will be an Athens Services personnel who will do it. They will be they'll be in uniform, they'll have a badge. You may see, if the state auditors are out, you may see me with them, shadowing and working alongside. Or you may see my colleague, Mitch Cass, who is our recycling specialist, out there in the field partnering with them. So the process is, take residential first. On a residential trash day, when your 3 carts are at the curb, nobody is going onto the property. When your 3 carts are on the curb, they will come along before the truck comes. They will flip those lids. They'll take a photo. I have databases of photos of trash on my computer. And as I said, if in the green bin, they're not looking at yard waste or food waste, vegetables, bones, that's all fine in that green cart. If they see something else, then they'll leave a little tag there saying, hey, we saw newspaper. This is where it gets tricky. Paper's fine if it's soiled paper that's not shiny, and it's complex. That's why I like the Athens guide that tells me what goes where. But that's what they're doing. They're trying to see if the resident has been recycling appropriately. For businesses, for businesses and the multifamily units, they will really tend to reach out and contact the business and go with them. So they're not really coming on without reaching out to, if it's a store owner or to a property manager in a multifamily unit, so that they can sort of go through that together and figure out what needs to happen better. Is there a change in containers needed? Maybe the business has too many trash containers and they need to reduce those and maybe have an additional recycling container. Maybe they need maybe the organics bin is getting too full and we need to order another one of those for them. So it's more of an in-person connection with our businesses and our multifamily units.
So with residential, it's like a random spot check?
Yes.
They just select a street?
It is, yes. Now, they will tend to do it twice a year in the city. They will always, we work hand in hand with our Athens partners. So they will always call me, let me know, so that if any of our residents call and say, why is somebody in my cart today, I immediately know, oh, that's Athens Services, they're doing their spot checks. And as I said, it is a requirement as part of our SB 1383 programs that we participate this way.
Commissioner Bajaj.
Good to know.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's a pretty interesting presentation, very interesting. 2 questions. The paper shredding event, is that usually combined with the hazardous waste, or is that a standalone event that they do? And do you know when the next one is coming?
Both, and yes, but I'll have to get that. It's on our redondo.org webpage. I will pull that up for you in a moment. It can happen. We have some that happen in conjunction with the hazardous waste event. That tends to be 2 a year, and then there are 1 or 2 that are standalone.
Okay. And one more quick question. E-waste, is that similar to bulky item pickup where you can call and specifically, put out like a cardboard box of e-waste too?
Yes, absolutely. The reason that we make the distinction is because it's obviously disposed of very differently. And when you call, or whether you call or you go online to Athens Services, they will ask you some questions about what type of waste it is, and specifically what they are trying to get at there is if it's e-waste or white goods, because they will potentially send a different truck to pick that up because it's going to it's a different disposal stream.
Commissioner Anderson.
A few questions. 9-year contract on the amendment, that's a long contract. Is there a reason why those contracts are, because you've talked about these disruptions and things that happen in the service, and I'm sure that changes the contracts due to that. Is there a reason why those amendments are so long?
I'll give a first answer and then I'll turn it over to Director Wingy if he has anything to add, but that is an industry standard. We presented at council just last Tuesday, and that's one of the key points that came up a number of times, that because of capital depreciation, because of a need to plan, because of the time and expense it takes to roll out new programs in cities with all of those cart purchases, those bins, the new trucks, that's a pretty standard duration in the solid waste industry.
Yeah, that's right. It's about the depreciation of the capital assets and investment made by the haulers. Some of them have long-term contracts with landfill as well. So it's just about planning to be able to provide the service over enough period of time for them to return a profit on their investments.
So yeah, when you sign that contract, they're probably buying new trucks specifically for that new term usually.
Yeah, that's right. We have some of our multifamily are using that mixed waste system. Part of their proposal for Second Amendment includes an additional truck and bins to go to 3 bins on those locations. So yeah, they've amortized over a 10-year period, shown us those numbers.
And then it's primarily funded through the property tax, is that correct?
So that differs as well. So yes and no. Our residential customers in those single family units and most multifamily units that are 4 and below, they're all billed on their property tax bill. And so we often get calls from new residents who move into Redondo into a single family home asking, I need to set up trash services. Right. How do I do this? And we let them know you're set up. So long as you have your 3 carts outside your home, you're good to go. That will be billed on your property tax roll. And I believe it is called refuse rate. That's the name of the line item on your property tax bill. For the multifamily and 5+ and the commercial businesses, they work with Athens Services directly, to select the services that they are going to utilize, and then they are billed directly on, I believe, a monthly basis by Athens Services.
And then in my neighborhood, there's a lot of errant residential trash bins that sit out. Is there a protocol that's usually accepted by? Is it usually from sunset to sunset? Is there any kind of enforcement for that? What's the protocol?
And if there, so it is built into our Muni code, the times, and you pretty much articulated what they are. If anybody has, identifies an area where they see carts that are sitting out, particularly, the night prior or the night before, you can let us know. I work with colleagues in our office. We go out, we write, we observe that is indeed taking place. Sometimes it might just be a one-time thing and somebody was ill. But if it's a routine and consistent violation, we'll go out, we'll take photographs, we'll write to the residents. And advise them that they need to bring those carts onto their property. There are some, there can be some minor exceptions where there isn't room on, for whatever reason, there isn't room on the property and they're left out. They're very rare. We work really hard with property owners to see if we can find space, even if it's in their, is it garage or garage, Andy? And their garages sometimes. Garage, okay. So we work really hard to try and get those onto the property. There is in some very, very small circumstances where Director Wingy, as the Director of Public Works, has the authority to make an exemption, but those are very few and very far between.
Thank you.
Anybody? Any public comment?
I have one more question.
Commissioner Bajaj.
Just curious for my own edification. When these have these amendments, they're essentially contract extensions, right? Is there a competitive bid process that they have to do, or is this built in the very first contract that you have? You can opt for these amendments before the city has to go out to competitive bid.
Yeah, that was the conversation last Tuesday with the council, whether or not to go out for bid for a new contract or to continue with Athens, or at least continue the negotiation and see where we get. It takes about 2 years, about a year to do the RFP, select somebody, negotiate the contract, and then about a year for that firm to prep in case they have to bring in new equipment. So we would be starting now to do that, which is why we were driving the conversation about whether or not we should do that or go with Athens. At the end of the day, council took our recommendation, which was a strong one, to stay with Athens based on the market as we understand it, where prices are going, our comparison with both rates and services with neighboring cities. We have a pretty good contract and a good relationship with Athens that the comment was made, welcome to Redondo, at the meeting last week, welcome to Redondo Beach, where we love our trash hauler, but we can't stand our public health service that we have at Beach City South District. So it was a little tongue-in-cheek after the collection of topics we discussed at the meeting at the council meeting last week. But yeah, Athens has got very high marks for customer service. When we have a problem, they're very responsive, 24 hours usually or less to get things done. So council decided that they'd prefer to move forward with who we know and prices that are competitive.
Great, thanks.
Any public comment?
There are no hands raised on Zoom for the record, or no e-comments.
I think Athens does a fantastic job. I think that they, from a multifamily point of view and being able to pick up the bulk services, and they pick them up fast, they're efficient. I think that working with them compared to the other trash collector we had, they've been doing a really good job. And thank you for the presentation, it was fantastic.
Thank you. And I will leave, if anybody doesn't have a kitchen pail, I will leave this out in the front. And if anybody else needs one, please feel free to contact us on any of the methods we highlighted on the slides tonight. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Do we need to make a motion to receive and file?
Yes.
Yeah, receive and file update on the city solid waste programs.
I'm happy to make that motion to receive and file.
Sure.
I'll second.
Sure. Roll call or all in favor?
I think you can just do a
All in favor?
voice vote.
Aye.
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 J2, discussion of capital improvement projects, process and procedures.
Can't see that far. Oh, just
I'm gonna let Andy kick us off with this item, and then I'll give a short presentation.
Okay, good evening. The second item we want to talk to you about tonight are processes and procedures related to our capital improvement program. We have heard some criticism from the public, and we are also making some changes internally that predate the recent letters that we've seen. So we want to make you aware of that and kind of walk you through what we do regarding capital projects, how they get selected and added to the capital budget every year. We've talked about this before annually, but good time to refresh. We also want to talk about our contract management practices and our procurement practices, which have been the target of some of the recent criticism. So we're just trying to provide more detail and invite a conversation. We're certainly in the business of working according to all the state laws, all the city laws, and in a way that's transparent and fully trackable by the public. So if there are things that you think would help us improve our process or our transparency, we'd love to hear that from you as well. So Jesse is our capital projects program manager. He's basically in charge of it all for the city. And so he's going to be making the presentation tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I'm going to kind of just give an overview, kind of high level presentation on the city's process and how we kind of function and go about our conducting our CIPs. Kind of an outline of the presentation, give a 5-year history, the different stages and definitions of CIPs as we define them, and then kind of all these categories of project identification, funding, execution, management, and closeout. And at any time, if Andy or Lauren want to chime in, please feel free. So here's something that we present to council kind of on an annual basis. I just wanted to put this up here just for your knowledge to show kind of the growth of our program over the last several years. As you can see, from 2020 to now, both on the project size and on the expenditure size and project completion. Our production has grown pretty immensely over those last 5 years. So kind of just want to highlight those growths, kind of showing the what I believe is been a very productive 5-6 years in the city when it comes to CIPs. CIP project stages. These are the way we define as we look at our 400 projects that are in the CIP. We have projects that are considered programmed. This is projects that are added to the CIP and budgeted at a certain level of funding that's appropriated for those projects. We have pre-design. This is where projects begin activities prior to the actual design, including planning, entitlements, environmental, public outreach, and conceptual design process. The design phase is the project formalizes conceptual plans, and the design development process continues in order towards final construction plans and specifications to secure all the permits as well. We have procurement. This is where projects are in the process of being let for competitive bids. We're evaluating those bids. We're awarding contracts and finalizing execution of a contract. Construction, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Projects in construction, and a notice to proceed has been given. Completed, these are projects that have been substantially completed and the closeout procedures are underway. And then we have a category of ongoing. Ongoing is kind of projects that are part of the city's regular and recurring maintenance and readiness programs, such as like slurry seal, residential rehab, restroom improvements, curb ramp improvements, kind of projects that can be in one of these other phases, but they're a continuous program for the city. Now, the project identification process. How are projects identified? We have requests. Requests are made from various departments along with the city council. These requests are reviewed by the CIP team, which includes the city manager's office, the finance department, and the public works staff. During the review, it must fit one of these categories. Is it necessary to public health or safety concern? Is it a mandate from the state or federal government? Does it complete an existing project? Are there operational savings in the future if this is completed? Does this have significant funding for the project? Does it promote economic development for the city? These are all the type of criteria that we're looking at as we have requests from the various departments and from our own departments as we look at what to include in the recommended CIP. Those projects that are selected are included in the recommended CIP that is then presented for City Council's consideration. And obviously, we don't add anything unless we have some level of project funding for a project. We have funding priorities that are included. Is this an imperative project, essential? Is it important, or is it desirable? Obviously, those are kind of the levels of as we're looking at what to fund first and what can maybe be funded later. There's also different types of funding that dictate what potentially moves forward and what doesn't. We have discretionary money. This is really where the city council makes decisions on particular projects that are important to them and then they prioritize. And then we have other restrictive funds that fund our street projects, right? We have those transportation funds. We have, Measure M, Measure R. We have our CDBG monies that are restricted to certain categories. And we obviously can only use those for certain things. And then we have grants. Grants are, most of our grants come from either Metro, which are, transportation or mobility projects. And we also have a couple Measure W, drainage grants. And other departments as well have some larger grants that we've received from the state through the years. And those are obviously very restrictive in what we do, and they fund specific projects. This is something that we're kind of working through as a flow chart for the budget process. I won't go through all of it, but in essence, it starts from the identifying projects to the final adoption by the city council and funding being available for that year one. Just wanted to include this as just an example of the flow charts that we're looking at putting together to explain our process. So once that happens, we have project execution, right? We have our projects, and how do we prioritize those projects and what we move forward on? There's many factors that guide the CIP prioritization. Some of those factors are date, seniority of a project that was programmed, funding availability, as I mentioned, regulatory requirements, continuation of a phased project, strategic plan priorities from the City Council, complexity of a project, and availability of staff resources and expertise. And along with that, we move to a procurement phase, which is guided by the state contracts code, by the city charter, and by the municipal code. Right, all those three in concert really dictate how we go about in procuring our projects. As we move through the process and we move into the design phase, we have professional services that are dictated in our Muni code, and a couple of different ways that we procure those are through RFPs or through our on-call contracts. For our larger traditional CIPs, this is usually where we put out an RFP asking for proposals from the various consultants. For some of our smaller projects, kind of our maintenance projects that maybe don't need as much of a design work, we have our on-call contracts that have a bench of 10 to 12 on-call contracts that we work through task order basis, and we can task one of these consultants to help us with some of these smaller designs that really help move our maintenance projects. And then with that, we have a couple different various public works projects. We have our maintenance and repair projects. A couple of years ago, the voters of Redondo Beach passed a charter amendment that added maintenance and repair to our charter. About a year ago, we had the council approve a ordinance that kind of detailed and defined what maintenance or repair projects were, the thresholds that they fall under, and if a project is considered maintenance or repair, we follow our maintenance or repair ordinance to accomplish and procure those services and those projects. On the other hand, we have our traditional CIPs. This is more of the design, bid, build projects that go through a formal process, also dictated by our ordinance, but procured in a slightly different way, kind of a lot more drawn out process, not drawn out in a long way, but just we have to go through a full design, have that approved by the City Council with the plan specs, and then we bid it, and then have that awarded and built. So it's a couple of different variations. And I think when we added, and really, I think Andy championed this along with some of that commission that was put together. I think this really has helped us move some of these CIPs forward and accomplish them in a more streamlined fashion, where we don't have to go through a longer process for some of these smaller maintenance projects. We can go through our maintenance or repair process and accomplish them and have those finished in a much timelier manner.
I'll just add here, Jesse, if I could. Yeah, I see you've got our traditional CIP design, bid, build process. That usually involves a consultant contract for the design and then a separate contractor, a procurement for the build portion of that. We also are moving more into design build as a process where the same entity is contracted to do both the design side and the build side. And then there's a variation of that called progressive design build, which is kind of an even a more improved situation for certain types of projects. Our Measure FP projects, so new fire stations, new police stations, $93.5 million bond measure is pursuing a progressive design build process for both the fire station and the police station that was approved by the City Council a couple of weeks ago also. So those RFPs will be going out very shortly on that.
Yeah, and I think one thing I do want to kind of just stress on this slide and this process is that, and I think there was some concern from some members of the public, some from the Budget Finance Commission, where we are governed by public contract code and by our charter and by our ordinance, right? We operate within those parameters and those laws, and we really can't deviate from those regulations. So I just kind of want to stress that is something that we are governed by and must abide by. Now, the next level, this is when a project has already been awarded and we have a project management, right? This one is the contract administration. The project manager that's assigned to a project is responsible for anything administrative that deals with the contract. That includes, having the construction schedule and kickoff meeting with the contractor, ensuring that everything, the bonds, all the proper documents are executed properly. And then once we have those conversations, once we ensure everything is dotted and crossed, we get the schedule. The project manager and the city engineer signs the notice to proceed to actually move forward on that project, and that starts the clock on that schedule. Along that, the project managers are responsible for timely progress payments, reviewing those progress payments. Most of our projects are billed on a monthly basis. Those progress payments go to the project manager, who ensures we're getting billed for work that was actually done. Then I actually review it to ensure it's meeting, it's being paid from the right funds. It makes sense. There's no issues. And then a third set of eyes, and Lauren, as the city engineer, signs off on that progress payment, and it is ultimately approved by finance and the city council. So there's a lot of eyes on these progress payments to ensure that we are paying what we're supposed to be paying. Construction management inspection is also part of a project. This is where we can do it either in-house or hire an outside consultant through an RFP process. Some of our smaller projects, we do have an in-house construction manager. He's assigned to those projects. He goes out, does the inspection, does the construction management, works with the contractors, ensuring everything is moving smoothly. That has really probably saved us quite a bit of money, not having to hire a consultant for every single project. And then we also, for our larger projects, that are a little more complex, we do have outside consultants that we hire through the RFP process. And the construction manager will work alongside with them to make sure and oversee their work, and ultimately ensure the project is moving forward properly. We do have change orders that are part of projects. I think this was a topic that came up too that I want to kind of clarify. Change orders are dictated by our APP, which is Administrative Policies and Procedures. So APP 14.1, which was established in 1993, and those thresholds in those change orders have never been adjusted. So they still exist since 1993. And just to those, I didn't put them up here, but in essence, projects up to $150,000, it's $25,000 or 25% of the project that the city engineer is allowed to sign off on change orders. 150 to 500, it's 25% of the contract, and anything over 500,000, it's 10% or $125,000, whichever is greater. So that is the thresholds that on the staff side, as the city engineer, Lauren is allowed to sign off on those change orders. And change orders can be, and mostly is, unforeseen conditions out in the field. It could be slight variations where maybe there was not clear, defined scope in the design where we have to kind of rectify that. It could be additions that, and what we've done here, the council wants us to add certain things. So we'll have change orders that we actually approach the contractor with and ask them if they're interested in doing that. But for those are outside the realm of the city engineer's authority, and those will come back to city council for their ultimate approval. So if it's anything above and beyond what the APP allows as a discretion from the city engineer, that all comes to the city council for their blessing. We cannot move on it until the city council blesses. And if they don't bless it, we can't move on it. So I just wanted to kind of touch base and clarify the change order process and thresholds. And ultimately, we have project closeout. This is where we have our final inspection, where we have the commissioning, if applicable, because not everything needs commissioning. You know, obviously, if it's a street project, they don't need to turn over a street to us. We know how to operate the street. But for, you know, our pump stations or any buildings, that this is where we would have that basically that handoff from the contractor. Then we go to council to officially accept as complete the project. That's done through administrative report. The council will accept as complete. We also lay out any change orders that were approved during that time, final cost of the project. And then we have the project recordation after that, where we record it with the county. And then the retention is ultimately released after 35 days if there's no claims on that project. And that kind of concludes kind of the life cycle of a project from kind of the inception to a closeout. That ends my formal remarks. So again, this is just receive and file the report, provide any feedback to us on any questions you may have on our process, anything that potentially you would like to see to help bring to light any issues potentially you guys may see. So I turn it back over to you, Chair.
Commissioner Anderson?
I was surprised to hear that you're using alternative project delivery methods. It's my understanding the state charter I've seen with other entities, Orange County Flood, that they'll allow, usually the commissioners in that case, or the council members, will approve a certain number of alternative project delivery contracts as defined, whether it's P3, progressive design build. And then that gives the opportunity for the staff to use that many, you know, it's usually like 10. And then it's usually not specified like it's for Measure FP or anything like that. It's been my understanding. Have you guys looked into job order contracts?
Yeah, Andy knows a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's part of our ordinance for maintenance and repair. And we've actually experimented with a company called Gordian with not obvious, you know, head and shoulders above other delivery methods. Right now, we're still trying to sort out if it's the company or if it's maybe the process. The type of work we do may not be quite as best suited for that process, but it is allowed through our maintenance and repair ordinance in our municipal code.
Yeah, a lot of agencies use it, obviously, and I think with varied success. Sewer, I think, is one where I've seen it a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, any public comment? Commissioner Nafisi, sorry.
Two questions, actually. For your process on criteria, do you guys have an unbiased process to where you evaluate their criteria once it comes in? Do multiple people review it just to ensure an unbiased selection process?
So it's usually a team effort. We have a team that I mentioned. It's usually city manager's office, our team here, us three, along with our deputy director, and then finance, that kind of review the projects and then really look at what the priorities are, what we have in funding, which ones we can fund, and then take into account all the other factors that we kind of mentioned there.
Do you guys use like an actual rubric, or is this kind of like ad hoc? You guys kind of just go through your process map as you showed to see if it kind of checks, you know, those boxes? Do you guys use an actual criteria?
We have not in the last, since I've been here. We are moving this year into a new system for our budget, which is ClearGov, which does have the ability to build out kind of a rubric and a review process that would go to individual people that would then score them, which we're looking to add. We just haven't had the resources to be able to do that, but that is something that we're looking at.
And I just would like to help moderate expectations there. We, you know, in a huge city where the decision about a bunch of street projects is far away from the political decision makers, that's a really excellent way to do it. In our city, a lot of what we decide or think on a staff level gets overridden at the dais when they're making decisions. So we are very sensitive to what we hear in the meetings leading up to the budget, the CIP event at the budget. The council uses the budget response report process, BRRs, we call them, where they'll ask a question, how much would it cost to put in, all inclusive play equipment in Franklin Park? And we come up with the number at the next meeting with a short report, and they may or may not choose to add that to the CIP. And we'll hear that, and we'll either build it into the proposed CIP, or they'll add it at the dais on the night they make the motion. So we do try and be very fair among the staff. We also have, transportation restricted funding is just that. We get a formula for gas tax back every year that we can't spend on anything but our road projects. And so, we go through, we know what we need to accomplish with keeping up with our pavement condition index, which we've talked to you about before, or to get a certain type of, the bike lane, the master plan implemented. So we'll pick and choose between those things and present that to council. We do bring it here for comment. We actually, Mike, the city manager, visits all of the commissions to ask about the budget process if they have recommendations. We solicit this commission. We ask certainly interdepartmentally. So that's kind of how we come up with the projects. And we do our best to, there's not been a lot of general fund money available for capital projects in the last few years. So that makes the process easier, frankly. There's nothing to fight over. But when we do have that kind of funding, that's a process that the council is very involved in. So, yeah.
Yeah, in the interest of transparency, right? And you guys have come under quite scrutiny lately, I think, and over some of the things you're doing. I think it could be helpful for you to be able to share with the community that you put these projects through a really thorough criteria that's unbiased. You're taking in consideration the areas that you guys are investing in. There's always this north versus south drama. I think it could be really helpful with the community just saying, hey, look, we are looking at this in totality and this is how we view it, and you could share it with the community.
Yeah.
I think it would settle a lot of
Very
hearts.
excited to get into some of this new software and be able to do that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and then, one thing that you mentioned, that is true. Since 2022, the council has added 40 to 50 CIPs that were not led by staff, right? So, the council ultimately decides, what they approve. So, we recommend certain projects based off the criteria and based off the funding, but ultimately the council makes the decision.
So the process looks really good. The one thing that I did see that was missing, and I hope you guys consider including it, is stakeholder engagement. So as you guys continue to do projects in the city, just a general reminder of communication. And communication has always been really hard in the city. Residents don't know what's happening. They find out from someone else. They find out when the project starts. And I feel like that, ruffles a lot of feathers. So maybe baking in some way of making sure that we inform the people that the project impacts, maybe before the project so that they can put input in the project, just baking that in so that once it's in front of their doorstep, there's no, I didn't know, or, so that they feel part of the process. I think that would be really helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. How about
I have one card, Jim Mueller. If you give me 1 second, Jim, so I can change the...
Okay. Jim Mueller, District 5, thank you again I want to make it clear that I did not initiate the question that the Budget and Finance Commission did. It was a member of the Budget and Finance Commission that brought this to the attention. And the focus was on change orders. And what the person was looking at was the percent that change orders were of the original estimate. And there are guidelines for that exist out there. For example, normal change order percent would be 5 to 10%. A caution zone is 10 to 15% change orders. Problematic is 15 to 25%. And emergency only would be greater than 25%. So as part of the Budget and Finance Commission's investigation, Stephanie Mitchell, the finance director, provided numbers for the commission, and I was able to get those numbers. And there are a couple of projects that really stand out. For example, And I should back up and say, I'm concerned about this because when the city council and the city manager form their budget, what do they go on as far as capital improvement when they're budgeting? And if the budget amounts or the amounts estimates that they're given don't hold water and the city ends up spending a lot more, it's a financial problem. I think you can see that. So there are a couple of projects that really stand out. One is the Anita at PCH Lane, whatever. The change order percent as a percent of the estimate was 233%. For the Inglewood Manhattan Beach right turn lane, the percent was 83%. And for the Torrance Boulevard resurfacing, it was 12%. Okay, so there seems to be, and you can see where people might have said, okay, what is the problem with the estimates? Are they really accurate? Are they good enough for the council to make a budget on? Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jasmine.
Good evening. I'm Jasmine Allen, and I am with Finance and Budget Commission, or Budget and Finance Commission, and I think I have met you, at least a couple of you, when we had our combined meeting. I want to thank Jim Mueller for letting me know that you were going to discuss this item tonight. So Budget and Finance Commission was looking at these obviously from numbers perspective. And we were looking at the big picture. So a lot of the projects, what we were seeing, and actually it was Jesse and his team who put together, by our request, this incredible spreadsheet. You can ask him to share it with you, that you could literally, I mean, it's an amazing, he did a really amazing job. You can click on items and it will tell you exactly when the change order was done, how much it was for. So one of our commissioners who initiated this entire idea, he was able to analyze and find some numbers, and the numbers were incredible. How much they increased from conception to the end. So there were in some instances that it was 50% more than we had planned to spend, 100% more than we had planned to spend. So the concern is, why are we spending so much? Are we not able to estimate correctly? Are the vendors taking advantage of us? Because once we start a project with them, we can go with anyone else. Yes, we did a bid, and they were the cheapest at the beginning of the bid, but once we're stuck, let's say they're digging a hole and then they find a pipe that needs to be fixed, then we have no choice but to continue business with them, and then are they taking advantage of us? So those are kind of questions that we are asking. So it starts from the very beginning. Who puts the RFP together? Does RFP, maybe we need option A, B, C, D, just in case something else happens, let's also get a bid for that. Just in case another thing happens, let's get a bid for that. So so those are kind of things that we are discussing. And the concern is, are those vendors taking advantage of the city? Because once they start a project, they continue on with additional items, and they don't have to compete for it. So that's where we are. We're going to meet. You guys can come. We're going to discuss it again in February, I think 12th at 6:30 p.m. in this room. If you're interested to learn more, you can attend, or you can email me with questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the contract should have stipulations for cost overruns, right? Percentage of cost overruns that are held liable by the vendor.
So there's a couple of things, and I just need to clear up the language, because there are change orders, and that's a term that applies specifically to a contract. That doesn't have to do with the budgeting process, which is part of what I had heard the commission was asking about. So let me talk about change orders first. When we get into a contract with the vendor, there's 4 reasons, according to our APP, that we're allowed to do change orders: change of scope, unforeseen conditions, similar work in a different area, and remind me of the 4th one. Just had it up. Anyway, there's a 4th one. But we are limited by the numeric limits that Jesse shared. Council has blessed those limits. We work within that, and if we have to exceed that, then we have to go back to the council and ask for more money. Let me just work through the 3 that Mr. Mueller mentioned here. Anita and PCH project, that was a project to look at the westbound approach of PCH along Anita. We went to Metro to get money to do that work. We initially thought, when we asked for money from Metro, it was years before we'd done any real design. We just knew we had a problem. We kind of did an assessment. What would this take? Maybe we'll have to move that curb line. Maybe we'll have to widen the road. That's going to probably cost, I think we asked for $2.5 million from Metro, and they granted it to us. As we got into design, we saw that the project didn't need some of those big expensive items that we thought, and our design shrunk down to about $250,000 type project. So we began work on that project. Somewhere along the way, we thought, hey, wait a second, there's more work we can do on this street to make the street look better and to address the pavement up the hill further. We can make the medians on this side match the medians on the other side. And so we looked at our contract. We looked at our available funding for Metro, which was still $2.5 million. And we said, let's get some quotes from 3 vendors that we had in town working. The existing contractor who had been through a low bid process and gave us quotes on the quantities at the same unit cost. So instead of paving, 400 square feet, now we're going to pave 4,000 square feet, for instance, but the same unit cost. And in fact, when we get big changes in unit cost, we're actually allowed to negotiate the unit price down. So we were able to do that. And so we went to 2 other vendors who were doing work here. One of them didn't want to do it. The other one was very much more expensive. So we decided we had budget. We had council's blessing to do that. We had this other project work, and we worked within, and I think we went to council.
Correct.
With that one to ask their blessing on that change, and they blessed it. They said, look, you're doing more work we need to do eventually, so let's do it. So it was all very above board. It wasn't, nobody's been taken advantage of. It was our strategic move on the sense of staff, to be able to get more work done at good pricing and with money that was available through Metro. So that was the first one. The second one, Inglewood, Manhattan Beach Boulevard. That was a process where we were also Metro-funded project. We were widening that southbound right turn lane there on Inglewood. It's probably the worst intersection in the city in terms of level of service. That southbound right turn lane was part of the solution there. We modified the signals on 2 of the corners. During that project, we realized that we'd have a better project if we could modify the signal on a 3rd corner. And so we finished up what we could, and then we paused the project. We got additional funding. We went back to council and said this would be a better project if we could improve this 3rd corner. Would you want us to do that? We got a quote from this vendor, and I don't recall if we got quotes from others off the top of my head, but we used the same unit prices and went back to council and said, we have money, we have a good price. Would you like us to do this additional work? We'd recommend it, and they said yes. So that was that project. And then Torrance Boulevard, that was a project that had been in our books for a long time. It turned into not just a paving project, but a bike lane project as well, and also a signal improvement project at Francisca. And so the change orders there were related to additional scope that the city desired to do as part of our adopted goals and programs for bike lanes and improving signals and that kind of thing. So that's another one. If it was 12%, I'm sure we went back to council and asked for additional funding, or we combined 2 projects that had already been blessed by council into one contract there. So all of these are, you know, we play by the rules. We have rules. We know we'll get in trouble if we don't. We have no desire to be out on a limb, as it were, by not getting the approvals from council that we need and recommending good strategies for the city to get more work done faster at unit costs that are bid in a competitive process. So that's kind of the change order conversation. The other conversation that we're hearing has to do with capital projects. And I haven't been to the commission meetings yet. We have a meeting tomorrow with the subcommittee of that commission to kind of, you know, for me to hear it and also to provide any answers to questions that they have about it. But what we're hearing is that there's concern about a project being budgeted for in one current or particular fiscal year, and then over time, additional funds being added to that project as it grows. And the concern that I'm hearing is that that's evidence that we are somehow not doing a very good job of budgeting for our projects. So what I would say in response to that is rarely the case. It does happen. Certainly around COVID, it happened. Mm-hmm. Prices were rising 7 to 10% annually in the construction industry. That's over a 4 or 5 year period. That's 25, 30% growth in prices. So our engineers,
Andy, if I can, it was 40. I did the analysis. It was 41% over those 5 years.
Yeah. So our engineers who do our estimates base their estimates on bids that have come in the last year or 2 or 3. And so when that's fairly flat, that's a pretty reliable number. But when the curve is that steep, and we didn't realize that at the time, of course, that was hindsight. So we did get surprised by construction pricing, and not just pricing, but other disruptions. Transit center project, we went 3 weeks, 4 weeks without being able to get concrete. For instance, I remember that pretty clearly. Timber doubled in price during that time. So it was a crazy time. Let me go back to the way projects evolve here in the city is aviation park pickleball courts. Council is interested in getting pickleball courts in the city somewhere. They chose Aviation Park. They funded it the first year. It's a couple $100,000 as kind of seed money to do some exploration. Let's do a feasibility study of, I think it was 8 or 9 parks at the end. And let's figure out what we want. Okay, now we figured out what we want. Let's put more money into that project. And so they put more money, but not enough to build the whole project, but enough to get the design started. And so maybe a year or 2 later, they fund it more. And then a year or 2 later, they fund it fully so we can build it. So the concern I heard is that, the year 3 total appropriation is 3 or 4 times what it was initially appropriated for back when we were just doing exploratory work. Well, that's by design. That's the council saying we don't want to tie up a lot of money into the future. We don't know how much to tie up. We'll give you some to get started. And when you decide, when we decide what we want to do there, then we'll fund it more. So that process is by design. So there's no problem from my point of view or from the city council's point of view on how that works. To the question about being taken advantage of by vendors, we had a project just recently bid last fall, November, I think, for the pier parking structure improvements. We wanted to do some concrete repairs there because it spalls because of the marine environment. And we wanted to do seismic retrofits to bring it up to the current modern code. We got estimates that were anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million kind of going into it. The bids turned out to be over $2 million. The surprise was that while the estimated numbers were good for most places to work in Southern California, they were not good if you have to bring in a crane by barge to get to that facility. Okay, engineer missed that. Engineer didn't have experience with that. We missed it too. So that was a mistake we made. But what we weren't taking advantage of, we just said, okay, we're going to cancel all those bids. We're going to redefine the project within our budget. And we're going to go out and get bids again. And that's what we did. And so that project's underway with a different scope. We're not doing the seismic retrofit right now. We're just doing the repair. So I think we have a lot of control in projects. We had another one that just went through a project to do the Portofino pump station. It was combined, two pump stations were combined in a single contract. We started into the first one. It was right down by the Seaside Lagoon area. We had to dewater the area to do the work. That's always uncertain because you are making guesses based on a few boreholes about what that's going to feel like when you're doing the work. It was a lot worse for the contractor than he expected it to be. We didn't think it was out of scope for how we wrote the project. So he threw out some claims. He started making claims. And so we didn't like the way he was going with this, but we had the ground open. We needed to finish the work. We pushed him through according to the plan. We did do some change orders on things that we found legitimate, but we canceled the Yacht Club Way, the other pump station. We just said, we're not going to make that part of the project anymore because we don't like the way you're working with us. We'll rebid it. We'll do it at a later time. So I think we have a lot of control to pull out of a contract if necessary, and we did it in that case. So I understand the concerns. Our process is messy, especially during construction. It's hard to know exactly what everybody might be wondering about to be able to provide all the transparency that people would like to have. We do have, as Jesse mentioned, we have 4 or 5 sets of eyes looking at the pay items to make sure that we're not paying for anything we're not getting, to not paying for anything out of scope, to make sure that we're not paying for anything that a grant may be authorizing us to pay for. So we are trying to do that work. That said, we think we can improve. Some of the software we're looking at has the ability to track our capital projects over time and make it easy for the public, people who aren't in this every day, to understand how projects evolve over time, both in funding and in expenses. So, yeah, we hear the message. We're working on that, but I don't think we have a huge problem, maybe other than just trying to communicate better and find out what the real questions are and answer those questions in the best way we can.
I feel like the city's really advanced in communication by opening up the website and using that as a tool for communication with the community, because I remember years ago when they couldn't do anything. Their hands were tied with the city, so
yeah, the best tool we have right now is
Absolutely.
a GIS-based map on our website where anybody can go to it. They can look for a project on the map, or they can search for it by name, find out when it's happening, what person is in charge of it, who it's funded by, how much it's funded for. So it's almost too much information there. It's hard. It blurs your eyes a little bit. So we're looking for ways that are a little more digestible for the general public to look at. But that is it's a tool that's available right now
Absolutely.
on our website.
And if it's there. If they're looking for it, the information's there. And with all projects, sometimes the scope of the work can change. And as far as the unit prices, if they bid at a low price, for a smaller unit, it just makes sense that you'd go with the same one when they're going for the larger unit. So I feel like it's a very fair bidding and vetting process. Commissioner Anderson.
I was going to say, thank you for explaining that, Andy. And some things always to be mindful of I see with a lot of the agencies I work with is one of them is they get a grant for a project, they think, and then it doesn't get bid for 4 years later. And obviously the unit price has changed a lot, the escalation in that time. And so being mindful of that. And when we do cost estimates, when I perform cost estimates now, I really try to be realistic. And when is that bid date actually going to be, right? Because it could very well be 2 years from now from preliminary design by the time you get it procured. And so that's one major. Another thing to think about too is prices. I was just speaking with another city today. They notice a pretty big change in their prices relative to when the bid is given in that time of year. It can change. It can fluctuate a decent amount as well. So it's a touchy thing, and it's as we like to say, an art as much as a science sometimes about how these numbers come in. And one thing we do sometimes with respect to if we're really worried about unforeseen site conditions, or if we're worried about what a contractor might pull, sometimes in the past I've done optional cost listings for certain items and just one unit, so that way you can hold them to that if that does come to play. And that has worked.
Yeah, we use add alternates or delete alternates on our bid packages sometimes, and it gives us flexibility. If bids come in low, we can add something. If they come in too high, we can reduce scope without having to rebid, so.
Yeah, and there's different ways too. I think sometimes if you're really worried about, oh, they're going to try to work us over on traffic control, using the wording of allocation versus just providing the full payment for that use. So that way, that way they don't just put a cone down and say, hey, we did the traffic control, right? So I know you guys are adept at all of those things, but some things I see, yeah.
No, it's good input, appreciate it, thank you.
Any public comment, e-comment? Going down the line, Commissioner Simpson?
No, I'm.
Commissioner Bajaj?
Nope.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Nafisi? Okay, all right, there you go. So, make a motion to receive and file this capital improvement project process and procedures that was so well done by the City of Redondo's engineering department.
I'll second.
I think you have to make the motion.
Oh, I thought you did motion. I'm sorry, I'll motion.
I'm happy to second.
All in
You can do a
favor?
voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Commission member items and future commission agenda topics. Anybody? Commissioner Bajaj?
I have a question, I guess, just for city staff about Dominguez Park and what's the latest.
Yeah, I'll let Andy, he knows a little more about that one, right?
Struck my memory when I saw the picture of it.
You haven't heard from me enough tonight, but yeah, well, some good news here. So just for those who haven't been watching all the updates on this, but Dominguez Park Playground project was built. We were about 3/4 of the way through the build, and the county's health department, who functions as the regulatory agency on behalf of the state, came in and said, oh, you need a permit essentially to build this. We're like, you're crazy. This has been a park for 50 years. What are you talking about? So in the end, we appealed that decision. It went through a process. We lost all the appeals. We had to keep the playground closed, fenced, and we are still working to get that open. The progress that's been made is I bumped into the director of Cal Recycle at a meeting in Ontario in November and pulled her aside and gave her 10 minutes of why this is a crazy decision. And she said, well, I'm the decider. I can't really answer you, but I'll connect you to somebody who can. So I got connected in January to the head of the enforcement group at Cal Recycle, and I kind of complained to him about we'd lost the battle on appealing the permit, but I gave him an earful about the poor presence of the LEA those other 50 years to let us know that they were actually had a responsibility at the site. He heard me. He seemed to persuade them to soften a little bit. So we had our first conversation with them in the middle of January, and they shared that they were working on a way that we could get the park open quickly while still complying with all their rules. We're expecting something this week from them on that, but we haven't seen it yet. So meanwhile, we are also working on complying with all their rules, which will involve some study of the methane levels in the soil, meaning we'll have to drill some test wells and put in some equipment to monitor that over time. It'll be an expense, 6 figures, probably not 7 figures, but significant. So we'll have to find a way to get that done over the next couple of years as part of our bringing our park up to code for a closed landfill. So that's the update. We've had some progress. We've had a little thaw in the relationship, which has been great. And we're anticipating something from them that will point the way to the light at the end of the tunnel, but no idea how long that will take yet.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a follow-up question,
Yeah.
just for my own purposes? I know when you guys were trying to find a place for the skate park, that Dominguez Park was identified as a possible location for a skate park. You guys clearly came back and said that you couldn't do it there because there were soil issues and all this headache. So am I crazy? Did the city was clearly aware they couldn't do anything with that park before. Why did we choose Dominguez Park to redo, I guess? If we knew that we had these issues previously and that we couldn't do these things on them, how did we get to fruition?
Yeah, so the Dominguez Park playground project had been put on the CIP probably 2016 or 2017. It's a pretty old project.
Yeah.
We got stalled by a process with the Parks Commission deciding that what they wanted. We got stalled by our our community services director leaving and going to another city, replacing that person not really finding their feet in the job and moving on, and a third replacement now in place. So it took us a while to get through, and COVID was in the middle of that, so it also took a while to get through the public process there, but it was still a high priority for the council to do the playground improvements there. We actually had to close the playgrounds there because we couldn't find, they're broken pieces, we couldn't get replacement parts. So we just had to close it. And it became dangerous where we had to do more than close it, we had to fence it in to keep people out of it. So that lasted that way for a couple of years. The difference between the playground project is it was essentially a surface-mounted project. We were putting in very shallow foundations, 2 feet deep maybe, for the playground equipment. The skate park, on the other hand, was in a different part of the playground, and it was going to have to sit, because the demands of the skate park were that the concrete pad that it sat on didn't move and shift because that would crack the elements of the play thing and create a bad skating environment. We had to go very, very deep with foundation there. So we were looking at putting in piles down 50 feet into the ground to get beneath the trash layer and hit solid ground again. So that's why that project didn't go forward. It was just too expensive for a skate park for the council's taste. And so this was a very different project in that it didn't need deep foundations, shallow foundations in the cover soil that wasn't the trash contaminated soil. It was the soil that was on top of the trash. So that's why the will of the council to advance that project didn't conflict with those requirements. Yeah.
And during that time too, SoCal Gas had a huge project in a different part of the park that had no issues.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, LEA didn't bother them at all. So
Why? They just don't care?
We didn't really want to throw them under the bus and say, hey, what about them? So we let the project.
Good.
Yeah, and we didn't even learn about it until after the project was done. So we didn't know enough about it. But
And the project that the gas company's going to have is going to come up every certain amount of years, right?
well, what they built was a facility where they could do testing every 3.5 years. It's every 7 years per pipe, but they have 2 pipes, so they stage it every 3.5 years. And it eliminates the need to dig up 190th Street next to the park. So that's why the city was very much in favor of it, because prior to that, if you lived near 190th, you knew to avoid it probably every 3.5 years, because they were digging up 2 of the lanes to be able to get down into their pipes and do their testing that they needed to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Bealey?
No question.
Commissioner Sal? All good. We'll make a motion for adjournment. The next meeting of the Redondo Beach Public Works Safety and Sustainability Commission will be a regular meeting to be held at 7 p.m. on February 23rd in the Redondo Beach City Council Chambers, 415 Diamond Street, Redondo Beach, California.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Were you on Parks and Rec with me?
Thank you.
I remember when all the